Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. Today we have Mr. Vivek Wagh. Mr. Vivek Wagh has over 27 years of experience in treating difficulties in learning and kindling interest in young minds about science, technology, mathematics, and astronomy. He is known internationally for his contribution to the representation theorem on Borel flows in the area of ergodic theory in mathematics. The theorem is now referred in literature as Wagh's theorem. He is an honorary faculty at Department of Mathematics at University of KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, South Africa. He is also the current president of the Regional Council of Indian Association of Physics Teachers for Maharashtra region. He was a visiting scientist at International Center for Theoretical Physics, Trieste, Italy. Today, we will have a session with him as a part of our learning phase. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Isha, and welcome to all the participants. I had given a questionnaire at the post some questions for all of you to answer. And the first question of what do we mean by education? So I would like to start with that. So there are two aspects to, if you look at any dictionary meaning of education, you have two aspects to it. One is the process of instruction in schools and universities, that is one. And second is enlightenment. So when we talk of mass education, I would like to know what is our definition of mass education. So any comments on that? There's a chat. So mass education, for example, if we are looking at a village, the village might consider education of all its children as mass education. When we are looking at a district, the district might consider, or even for a block level, covering students from a block level of schools, it's considered mass education. Or if you look at Congress party, it might consider training of its cadre as mass education. So in any given context, when the size becomes slightly larger, we do talk of mass education. Education, when we talk of mass education, we have two very distinct systems. What's called formal mass education. Such systems exist in form of primary schools, universities, colleges, various training institutes of different types. That is state controlled. So basically state controls what is to be learned, how it is to be learned, the processes of learning. In the context of school education and college education, university education, this is the general scenario that we are seeing. State also controls even non-formal education to some extent. So for example, there was adult education, for which again the syllabi, what is to be taught, what is to be passed on, was controlled by state. Investor education, consumer education, these are also mass education programs. And they're also controlled to some extent by state. There are non-state players also in formal education. For example, and it's mass education. For example, you take Byju's as a large online learning platform. So it's also trying to conduct mass education. You take any political party or organizations such as Rashtra Seva Dal or Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh or several other organizations. They have their own structured formal modules to be transacted for its own cadres at various levels. So for these formal systems and non-formal systems. Now when we talk of health education, health and hygiene education, or education, religious education, traditions education, artisans education. So there are many non-formal mass education systems that coexist with formal schooling also, or formal education systems. So in the context of any given geographic region, we will always find both systems coexisting, at times influencing each other. There are several mass education tools that are used. One is the formal classroom delivery. Talks, lectures. There was theater. For example, theater as a mass education tool has always been used in Dalit movement also, in pre-independence movement also. Organization of many forms of festival. For example, organization of public organization of Ganesh festival was used as a tool for mass education and started initiated by Lokmanya Tilak. So different styles of education, mass education activities are undertaken. Their evaluation criteria also are different. Their objectives are different, the goals are different. India has a large middle class. And this class has its own goals. Largely, the formal education system in India caters to development of a large workforce. So formal education systems have been trying to create workforce in various ways for various things. Although the stated objective of all educational institutions and educational platforms of this type, which are nationally controlled formal education systems, has always been the so I'll get to the question answers. Let me first of all start about these things. The issue with various tools and techniques that are diverse is related to the type of pedagogy that is used at the time of your transactions. Now, when we talk of formal education and mass programs, different things have been tried. For example, UNICEF has tried about what is called joyful learning activities on a large scale to be transformed, to be translated into classroom actions. there are a lot of learnings from the programs like district primary education, which was a large scale program. Then Bunyadi Shiksha was a large scale program. The scale, large scale depends on what we define as large. So 237 schools is a reasonably large scale at that level. The transaction in a classroom is through what is called a classroom contract. And the teachers and students' understanding of classroom contract in any mass education program is important. Present day transaction is based on how various models have been put forth and what is easiest to do. Many times it is left for the child to learn, even within the classroom phenomena, transaction phenomena. It is not that it's always possible to have different types of classroom contracts within a school. And many active teachers do demonstrations, organize skits, organize quizzes in classrooms. Any mass scale initiative has a lot of structure. And that structure is generally on basis of the discussion that goes on. It is, the comment was, it is structured for a large audience. Yes, but for many, for example, 1 to 30 is a large audience, because the classroom transaction 1 to 30 is for a lot of people a very large transaction. Sometimes the student to teacher ratio is 1 to 4. Somewhere it is 1 to 60. Typically in Indian context, it is 1 to 45, 1 to 60. And in practical terms, it may be 1 to 100 also, because there are multi-grade teaching. Some teachers are absent. You have to look at the transactions for other classes as well. So when we talk of structuring or design, when all these mass programs were designed, like district primary education program, even the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, the Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, they have a design. What type of design is this? There is a national resource group. Then there is a state resource group. Then there are district resource groups. Then there are block resource groups. And there are what is called cluster resource groups. So there is a cascade of trainings. And there is no other way to reach large number of people other than through a cascade. Now this cascade, how does the cascade work? And how much transaction in a large scale program gets effectively filtered and on what time scales? So you look at school system or education system as a society. It has its own structure. There are administrators, education administrators. There are school administrators. There are teachers. There are students, and there are parents. Now, understanding of education itself of this society is a pivotal factor in effecting any education change. So when we talk of large scale education changes, large scale changes, the time scales are very large. The education has not deteriorated to this level all of a sudden. It has taken its time. And it is not going to improve all of a sudden. The degradation was going on for years together. And it takes years to uplift it. One of the most successful transformation, I have always said, is the history of women education. It started more than 150 years ago. It is still continuing. But it has lots of success stories. But all those success stories, there were initially few. There has been a tremendous fight. The fight for equality is still going on. For example, in STEM education, the participation of women at many other places is still very small than what it should be, because there is no biological difference. There are no factors, for example, even in mathematics or engineering or things like that. The percentage is now increasing, but it is still very small. Look at the Olympiad medalists or participation of girl children in national Olympiads, excellence programs. It's still very small. So, but the scale, the time has been quite long. Various curricula have tried to include mass education tools such as visual art and theater. However, it has never been implemented effectively. How do we bridge this gap? Ayush, the question is okay. Why don't people implement certain things? Because they don't own it. They don't feel like doing it, or they are not competent enough to do it. They don't have that experience to do it. It's easy to say that you should teach you should use theater as a tool. But how many people are able to write a script properly? How many are able to frame, develop characters that are required for a street play or even a classroom play? It's not easy. And these skills are not developed in our formal education systems as of today. These skills have never been a part of formal system. They always have been a part of the informal system, where, how many parents, for example, encourage their very young children? I don't know whether your parents have encouraged you to write a script. For example, what type of a script will you write for explaining various theorems in mathematics through theater? So there are limitations to use of theater also. So different tools have to be used for different type of teaching learning processes and for different sections. Women from tribal area became vice chancellor of Jharkhand University. Yes, that is true. It is true, and there is a lot to. There is a lot of change that needs to come. It's not easy, and that change doesn't come that easily. Even today, for example, working women struggle with mending of family responsibilities. Many people, many partners don't participate as much as they should in household chores, household work. Many children also don't participate. So there are these issues. Yes, participants can share queries. So when we talk of, because I believe, when I was looking at the chat on the group initially, the Eduthon group initially, there was a lot of discussion on changing things. Why doesn't the system change? Why doesn't the system respond? Because the competencies don't get built in a day. And when you want to build competencies on a very large scale as this, you see the perception, I see various comments coming up about perception of women, etc. Let's for the time being stick to how perceptions change, how the society has changed, on what timescales it has changed, and what type of tools people have used to effectively change society. The struggle for example, to break the caste system barriers have started long back. And partial things are there and partial results are there. I mean, we have broken a lot of barriers in caste system. See, I think Liz asked that, right? Who asked this? Yeah, Liz. Can't a good policy structure help build a new education system? No. A policy structure does not help build different systems. The Constitution is pledged to equality. The Indian Constitution is pledged to equality, equal opportunity to all sectors. 70 years have passed. But this is not, there are many laws, there are many things which are there. So policy alone or laws alone have never helped. They never help. Laws are a framework which you can use to fight for achieving that. Policy is a framework which you can use to fight to achieve for that. The issue is never with just the policy. The issue is about all of us as a society. Does the society want a different structure of examination en masse? Even if you change the patterns of questions, even if a school slightly deviates from the patterns of questions, the parents rebel. There is a halla-ho that the things have changed. You have not stuck to this. This pattern was never announced. So, merely the policy or merely a legislation is not effective. What needs to be done is to carry the message and convert the mind frame of all the participants involved in execution of that policy towards achieving these goals. And that's not an easy task, as all of us know it. We still struggle with many issues. Why is it not that every teacher implements See, world over, it is easier said than done. World over, policy changes have been there. Look at the US education system. US policy in education have changed many times, and there have been mass programs. And if you look at research papers in education, you will see a reflection of constant underpreparedness of students. There are students who reach university without being able to do certain basic things that they are expected to do. So underpreparedness has not been solved by change of policy, by change of structures. One basic fundamental thing that we should look at is what is always had been traditionally there. Mass education finally reduces to understanding of all participants and building capacities of all participants. The differential, yes, but they are in US, everyone is not expected to undergo university education. In India also, not everybody is expected to undergo university education. People aspire for it. So let's look at it this way. There are always diagonal or exit routes even in Indian education. For example, ITIs and trades and other education systems are what is called exit routes. What is compulsory? Primary education. Compulsory education is primary education. Beyond primary education, it is not compulsory. Nowhere in the world it is compulsory. It's incorrect to say that mass education targets to the average of the class. That is an incorrect thing. The basic purpose everywhere defined for education is overall development of the child. Nowhere, in no place has anybody said that the basic purpose of education is different than this. What is overall development of the child is what is the question that we should ask. The overall development of a child is always physical, mental, emotional, social, and economic. Yeah. So physical, social, emotional, economic, all these developments. If you ask me what I believe is the purpose of mass education purpose is well defined. The trouble is, how do we effectively achieve it? Nobody has any questions about what is the purpose of mass. The purpose of mass education is very clean and clear. Purpose of mass education is to uplift society in all its aspects: social aspects, economic aspects, emotional aspects, physical aspects, strong citizenship aspects. The aspects are well defined. There is no debate on that aspects at any level. The problem that we see and discuss, and even all of you are so fierce about, is the quality of output of mass education programs. Now, why is that quality suffering? Where is the problem with quality? The quality, if you have patience, or I will advise all of you to go through what is called the Zakir Hussain Committee report on education. and on basic education. See, Mahatma Gandhi had proposed a scheme of education, and there is a Zakir Hussain committee report that was presented. It is paucity of people with adequate knowledge base and adequate skills within a large society. For example, I am a mathematics researcher. The way I understand mathematics, most of the teachers don't understand. They can't see it because they have not been ever creatively involved with mathematics in that way. Someone who understands physics because he or she has helped in creating new knowledge of physics, understands it better, experiences it better. There is no debate even on implementation. We all agree that the purpose of education is not achieved right now also through mass education tools. Even I will go to a larger extent. Even the best schools have pathetic performances when you really look at the abilities of the students. Let me give you a question that I commonly give. What type of theorems, mathematical theorems, that all of you have studied? The car jack with the handle where we use the car jack. On what basis of, on what theorems is it based? Yeah, jacks. Let me look at the last comment. The reason why purpose of education is not achieved could be due to the outcome expected and the methodology adopted. Mismatch. You see, one may sincerely believe that the methodology adopted will deliver the outcome. Even when DPEP or this learning, joyful learning program designed by UNICEF was being implemented, there are a lot of friends who are doing it. Even my friends who are well-meaning, I know them. They believe sincerely, just like you are believing sincerely that your ideas are bound to change education, or you are working sincerely to develop an idea that will change this education. So there is a sincere belief, but sincere beliefs are different, and an extensive research that you need to do about why certain things work, why certain things do not work, why things have not changed so far. I personally came to education 35 years ago just to look at what is the context of Indian education, what is ailing the system, what type of system is it, and gave myself 25 years to study Indian education system. In fact, education systems worldwide, what things are there. So, what are the missing elements? A school functions less than 180 days. So your formal education system functions about half a year. Half a year it is not functional. The official timing, the official duration of schooling is 220 days. Assume. Practically, it functions less than 180 days for various reasons. And for a single child, it may be different. So 180 days, the child is in school for 6 hours. 180 days, 365 days, the child is immersed in society 24 hours. So if you delete these 6 hours or 8 hours of schooling, for 16 hours, the child is outside the school. If you consider 10 hours the child sleeps, it is still 6 to 8 hours. The child is, even when schooling is going on, the child is in society for 6 hours, free. And for remaining 180 days, the child never goes to school. So you can't blame only formal education system for what the situation is. These are personal views that schools and formal education systems succumb to pressures. Is a personal view. It's not a well-studied, well-researched view. Let me put it this way. Most of you have not done substantial research on issues related to education thoroughly. The problem lies in our knee-jerk approach to things. Schools succumb to pressure. What pressure? Which pressure? There is no pressure. The completion of syllabus and completion of chapters in a textbook are two different things. Parental pressure for pen and paper exam is a pressure, is a hypothetical thing. Have you conducted a survey of, let us say, 5,000 parents or 10,000 parents to see how many parents feel and how many parents give excessive importance to examination? I'm sure no one has done that here in this group. If you have done, please state that way, that I have interviewed, I have given questionnaires to 1,000 or 2,000 parents, 3,000 parents, 5,000 parents, and these are my results. This is general talk. This is just the general talk. And this is general common talk. Why are parents obsessed with examination? No one is obsessed with examination, by the way. People are obsessed with performance. You are obsessed with performance at the examination because of one philosophy that we all subscribe to. Winners takes it all. Or it is necessary to start winning right from go. Otherwise, your opportunities will dwindle. This is the philosophy that we subscribe to, all of us, as a society. And that's where the root problem lies. The problem is not with the examination and securing marks in the examination. The problem is with the fear of lagging behind. So, you see, if my child loses, if my child starts falling behind in school, my child will not get opportunities and my child will not probably survive. This fierce competition is a feeling that has got generated because of paucity of jobs as compared to things. Now look at traders. All small traders, the Kirana traders and things like that. Lot of their children study. Yeah, this comment. Sir, I am a doctoral researcher and interviewed parents, observed PTA meetings, working in this area exclusively for 10 years. Good. I request teachers respond here. Yeah. It's an experience of most teachers. See, most teachers' experience is that parents want their children to perform well. Is there any other indicator that is available en masse to show or observe that a child is progressing? We have not defined indicators. We have not developed indicators that are available to parents and children. The indicators that all of us choose are yes, because there are indicators only. Exam is an indicator that we have chosen as the only valid indicator. Have we developed alternative indicators that are available en masse to the education system? We have not. But an examination has thought type questions, higher order thinking skills questions. I don't really believe only in that. See, these are all very these are belief comments that the examination system is just the rote learning system. See, there is a segregation of, if you look at Bloom's taxonomy, knowledge, application, analysis, and synthesis. So knowledge is what? Knowledge of facts. Facts given in a textbook that is to be studied. So whether the child is conversant with the facts that are given in the textbook, whether the child is able to apply to simple things, because application as defined in Bloom's taxonomy, that is accepted world over, refers to yes, your observations are correct, but I am still I will give you a even more funny thing. If you look at, you go to any random school and give just these 5 questions in mathematics. 1/2 plus 1/3 is equal to 1/3 minus 1/2 is equal to 1/2 multiplied by 1/3 is equal to, and 1/2 divided by 1/3. Less than 20% are able to answer them correctly. So even basic assimilation of facts, assimilation of basic processes in a subject is very weak. And it has nothing to do with the type of transaction, classroom transaction, or classroom processes. There is a study that is conducted over 16,000 students. we are talking about, Liz asked the question, why do we need this? We are talking about comprehension of a subject. When something is there for a child to learn as comprehension, see, all of you should study Nayi Talim, because what you are talking about, Finnish education program and things, and the new education system, etc., was well studied. It was to a large extent, I believe that the Nayi Talim system that was introduced was relating hands-on work to various subjects. Its history, for example, history of cotton, history of the economics of cotton, the mechanical efficiency of extracting cotton, machines that have been designed for various purposes for just the cotton. So there are a lot. Well, these are, you have lots of comments. I accept. If the, what is student friendly? A transaction being student friendly means what? Is a question. That perception of what is student friendly is different for different people. And there's no harm. Most of the teachers feel their classroom is student friendly. You don't feel. Yes, what is learner-centered pedagogy? That a child is supposed to learn at his or her own pace and in any form that is suitable to the child. Which teacher objects to it? In the classroom, the teacher is presenting some material. In the classroom, the teacher is not insisting that the learner must learn in only this way and no other way. There is no insistence by any teacher. Well, why are our students forced to learn subjects which they may or may not want to? There is a consensus in the world on what should an average citizen know. No, there are differences. There are systems where up to 10th grade, you also have choices of subjects in many situations, but CBSE, etc., have defined a formal pattern to education. And remember that studying in formal education system is itself a choice. It is compulsory up to primary grade. Beyond that, it is not compulsory. So it's a choice that you are making. Every parent and every student is making a choice. No education system is compulsory beyond the primary education system. So if you are going into 10th standard and want to pass a 10th standard examination because you want to go into a university, you are aspiring to go into a formal education system, you and your parents. The teacher is not forcing, the constitution is not forcing, the education system is not forcing. Yes, we all have. We all have an effective informal education system which allows you to do many things. Nobody stops you from writing a research paper or even performing research. You may not get a job for certain things, unless you show your excellence in that area. If you have enough knowledge base, opportunities are open. It's not a closed system. Many of the consultants, I'll tell you, one of the persons who is an advisor to Bamboo board is not a graduate, he's my friend. But he is a known expert in India on bamboo. And there are many such people. Is the confidence to exit the formal education system and the confidence of the parents that my child will survive. That matters. It's a choice. See, compulsory education is only up to primary grade. That's a question. And that we can discuss. I mean, because this meeting, I think I have about 6 minutes time. But there are many alternative ways of building competence and capacities of people around us. I led at time in the early 90s a movement in science education in central India. And we had covered a lot of ground. And hundreds of children, in fact, thousands of children were beneficiaries. Exposure to population was of 5 million population. Newspapers started columns in science and science popularization. The local television channels aired programs related to various science and science popularization activities, which were not that much before we started that. And about 10,000 children built their own microscopes. We devised lenses that have a portable technology that can actually help you see basic cells, basic things like amoeba, paramecium, at a cost of about 20 rupees, present 20 rupees. At that time, it was 4 to 5 rupees. So, building competencies, a large number of those children who were exposed to that type of that program are still active. They are still popularizing science and other things. They trained their children that way. And most of the group which was involved in this are entrepreneurs now. They give employment to others. So there are many such opportunities that we need to create, and it is possible. There are several tools to do it. What is required is consistent effort towards that. Yeah, I somehow lost the chat part here. Yeah. No. I'm not able to see the chat part right now for comments. But see, everything like you said, all the experiences are basically community-based experiences. Because in community, there are a lot of mentors and few children. At school, formal schooling level, there is only one teacher and about 20 children, 30 children, and the time duration of interaction is very limited. So, the question of improving quality of learning is always a society-based. It is not a school-based. Because irrespective of how you tend to alter the schooling situation, because there are many aspects. The school classroom cannot be noisy because other classes where children are learning, they are not soundproof. Then there is not enough activity space for classroom arrangements. And you cannot really change classroom design very quickly from one activity to the other activity. These type of limitations are there on the classroom design and classroom space. So formal classroom has a very different purpose. It has a purpose of just introducing the subject. And the subject has to be understood, developed, and anchored within the society. So within the society, those things can be anchored well. Otherwise, how do we change the mindset of the society? Here it is believed that one cannot survive without formal education up to the university level or at least senior secondary level. See, society's mindset does not change all of a sudden. It is not built all of a sudden. Previously, there were only a few going to the university. There was no mass education. And still the society was surviving. Still people were surviving. It is the nature of jobs. It is the nature of the change that has taken place as a society, as a socio-economic structure that is responsible for this. And the only way to change is working on a long period of time. On a long period, we have in fact underprepared students and underemployed. There is underemployment because people are seeking employment. People are seeking employment. They want someone else to design, define a job and give it to them. And give them a substantial pay. That is also true. It is not that jobs are not available. It is the matching of the jobs. Whether you want to match a job, what type of a job you want, what type of a choice you want. It is about aspirations than availability of opportunities. Opportunities are available. Opportunities have always been available in society. Otherwise, no entrepreneurs would have ever come up. Developing, see, economic development is a very different thing. Economic development requires you to understand what can give you money, how it can give you money. What is the job size, how many people have jobs, and how many people don't have jobs. That is how many people have a service or provide, ownership is somewhere else and people are doing a job there. And how many people are self-employed. The number of self-employed people in the economy is far larger than the number of people who have jobs. You take out all the people who are, independent. The economy will collapse in 2 days. You see all vegetable vendors, the samosa wala, all entrepreneurs around you, farmers, all aspects of economy. The economy, structured economy is less in size, always. It is based on these aggregate. As long as you are seeking a job, you will need a degree. Personally, I don't know where my MSc degree is, my school certificates, they were useless to me. They are still useless because I am not a job seeker. Now, why did I acquire those degrees? It's not true. It is not true that nobody wants to get into agriculture. I have several friends who have got into agriculture and they are earning a lot of money. It's the framework, the skill level, the knowledge base, the ability to study, ability to do substantial research. That is important. They have that ability. They are not, I am telling you, one of my friends who is not a graduate is an advisor, and there are several such. And you will find that doctors are doing something else, engineers are doing something else. Can't research. Why can't we? Why can't you? Amruta, why can't you? Who is stopping? Why are you looking to researchers? Even you should say, I will design. Be more proactive. Take the lead. All of you here, all of you are here because that is what is that. You take the lead. You design material. Is BYJU'S a formal education system controlled by state? Is Unacademy a education system controlled by the state? No. Is Khan Academy an education system controlled by the state? No. So there are many education providers. Coursera is an education provider. There are several education providers. Is the carpenter training another carpenter governed by laws and rules of training? No. A carpenter teaching the art of carpentry, understanding wood, etc., is a trainer. So it's not this way. We are giving too much importance to formal education system. Formal education system is not too important. It is more vocal. The formal education system is more vocal. No, Unacademy is not mapped to state curricula. Unacademy is not marked to state curricula. Gandharva Sangeet Vidyalaya is not marked to state curriculum. Or all the tabla classes and music classes around are not marked to state curriculum. There are many non-formal, non-state controlled education systems. We must open our eyes to them. That is important. Look around you. There are Kathak classes, there are dance classes. Is there a defined state curriculum? And do each student who passes gets a degree or wants a degree? That is because they are required by law to follow one of the curriculums. If you want a state recognized school, then you have to follow that. If you don't want an affiliation, if your students don't want to appear for an examination, the state can do nothing about what you can teach, what you want to teach. And who says a school must run for 6 hours a day or 10 hours a day? It may run for 1 hour a day for all 365 days. You can design your own curriculum. You can design your own activities. And there are such initiatives. See, don't because most schools are bound by state laws because they are governed by legislation. They have accepted a registration with education system. They are registered with Department of Education. Why should the state relax state laws? There is a demand from parents and others to legislate preschool education. Why do schools need state recognition? No. Schools need state recognition to function only if you are going to teach some syllabus and ask students to appear for the 10th standard board examination. If you put a board that this school is not a state recognized educational institution, the state can do nothing. You should not say that this is a state recognized school. Not all are recognized. Their recognitions things are different. They take affiliation to different things. Yes, I think I'll wrap up here. We can continue the discussion on WhatsApp groups or other areas also. So let me thank the Makeshift team for giving this opportunity to interact with you all. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.